This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Monster! Aquaman, Wanna Beast, Shazam, Plastic Man, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Firestorm, Batgirl, Blue Beetle, Black Orchid, Booster Gold.
Mission accomplished.
Looks like Gotham City isn't just a one Cape Crusader kind of town anymore. Team up with Batman, the Brave and the Bold.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 262 of the DCAU Review. That rhymes. I am Liam, and with me, as he always is Cal. Cal, for the last week of the month here of May, we have a special Elseworlds review this week. But since this was a future month, a Batman Beyond / Zeta Project month, we picked an Elseworlds tale of an appropriate theme, I would say.
Yeah, it just so happened that there happened to be an episode set in the future of one of our favorite Elseworlds, our favorite Elseworld to visit, as we dubbed it last week. That, of course, being the James Tucker-headed universe of the Batman, the Brave, and the Bold series, which is one we come back to quite often, and is so every time we've been here, it's just a joy to sit back and watch the storytelling that happens on the show, the fun that's had, and the cameos and all the homages that are squeezed in. And we continue on that same thread here as we tackle this week's episode, which is the Batman, the Brave, and the Bold episode titled "The Knights of Tomorrow." And as the title would suggest, we do deal with life after Bruce Wayne as Batman, and but in only the way that the Batman, the Brave, and the Bold can do it. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun breakdown. And once we get into this week's 4 categories,
absolutely, Cal, can't wait to get into all of the wonderful homages to the history of Batman, as this show so often does a great job of doing. The show meaning Batman, the Brave, and the Bold, not our show. But, I think we do an all right job, too.
I'd say so. Hey, I'm pretty sure we've had some people tell us so. Some very important people like Miss Gail Simone said that we do a great job.
Oh, whoops, just dropped the name there. But, yeah.
Hey, we didn't say it. We didn't pay her to say it. She volunteered it. So, we'll take the compliments as they come. We're putting that one on the poster.
Absolutely great. Always the rare the rare positive interactions that actually, thankfully, I think our social media interactions with folks who listen to our show and people we interact with are generally pretty positive. But overall, I would say
Twitter
positive
experience
interactions for your rank and file Twitter user, not always positive. But yes, we did have a pretty cool one this week with Gail Simone. Humble brags out of the way. We will get to this week's plot and visuals, music, and voice acting scores. But first, of course, Cal, I must regale us with the official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode.
That is correct. And as we mentioned just a moment or two ago, this week's episode is Knights of Tomorrow, which originally aired here in the States, at least, on the Cartoon Network, according to the Batman, Brave, and the Bold wiki, on November the 19th, 2010, meaning we will come to the 13-year anniversary of this year's episode's original debut this very calendar year. And of course, the official IMDb synopsis is brought to you by the Pod Tower. If you are interested in just some of the best podcasts around dealing with all things DC animation, I invite you to head over to youtube.com/thepodtower today, where you'll hear great podcasts from our friends at Watchtower Database with their podcast Jump on the Bat-Wagon. Also, you can get the entire Tim Talk catalog, which features a review of every single DCAU episode ever, and some great bonus episodes. And of course, it features our entire catalog all in one special streaming area for you. So we invite you to head over today to youtube.com/thepodtower and subscribe today.
That is right, Cal. So this is the synopsis for Knights of Tomorrow, which was written by Todd Casey and Jake Black, directed by Michael Chang, with music by the Dynamic Music Partners, and animation by Digital Emation Inc. And that synopsis reads as such. This is a great one. It is the story of Batman's retirement and his marriage to Catwoman. Bruce Wayne now hopes that his son Damian will follow in his footsteps, and his confidence in him will be put to the test.
Not gonna lie, it had me in the first half. Struggled at the beginning, but felt like it picked up steam at the end and ended up finishing strong. So
yeah, more like, I think, the word structure. Nothing. The actual information conveyed, I think, all accurate. Pretty good summation of the tale, albeit a little bit scarce on details. But yes, when I read "It is the story of Batman marrying Catwoman," I was like, "Yep, this is a golden one." But yes, we can get into our plot here. Of course, as we've talked about many times, these Brave and the Bold cartoons always have a little vignette, a little short that airs before the main episode, before the theme song. And this one is actually a pretty important one because it sets up something in a future episode. And that is we see the Question on Apocalypse gathering some intel about an impending invasion that Darkseid plans to attack Earth. We see Question radioing Batman and sort of conveying some of that information before having a brief interaction with Calabac. And ultimately, the Question chooses, when he's sort of backed up against the ledge, he jumps off into one of the fire pits of Apocalypse. Is he dead? Well, you'll have to tune into the next week's episode. Same bat time, same bat channel to find out. But yes, that's our exciting little teaser for something down the road in that series. But then we after our main title, we get to our episode, an episode which is narrated kind of all the way through by, as we come to find out at the end, spoiler alert, one Alfred Pennyworth, as he describes the story of Batman. But really, as we come to find out, this episode's really the tale of two Robins.
Once upon a time, Gotham City was a cesspool of crime and corruption, where gangsters and madmen ran afoul of the law, and decent people lived in fear. That is, until a force for justice appeared in the leather-winged guise of Batman. Eventually, he saw the need for a partner in crime fighting, a squire who would help him in his caped crusade. Thus was born Robin. Together they served as an ever-vigilant reminder to the Gotham underworld that no criminal was safe as long as the dynamic duo was on the job. It came time for the Robin to leave the nest.
We learn about the origins of Batman and him bringing justice to Gotham, and then ultimately taking on a partner in Robin, who grows up eventually to be Nightwing, disco collar and all, and eventually goes off on his own, leaving Batman alone to fight crime once again, which leads him into the path of Catwoman. And eventually, after their romance / rivalry over the years, he's finally able to rehabilitate Catwoman, and Catwoman and Batman become a crime-fighting force, and in fact fall in love and get married, and they have a young son named Damian. But as Bruce has gotten older, he can, and with a family now to support, he can no longer wear the mantle of Batman, and we get kind of the introduction of our first theme of the episode, which is something I think we see a little bit more commonplace now in various mantles of the big top superheroes, whether it's Batman, Spider-Man, even Superman now, which is that it's more about the ideal than necessarily the man in the costume. And we see that represented as we see Bruce very symbolically handing the costume of Batman over to Dick Grayson.
Our hero realized Batman had to be immortal, even though Bruce Wayne was not. But being true to form, he had a contingency plan. And so the mantle of Batman was passed, and justice endured. Batman endured. But this story was far from over.
Yeah, that's right. And that you are absolutely right. Especially in modern day comics, I think it's more common than it was. You know, we've had the same characters around for forever, and sometimes it feels like it's just an attempt to drive up sales or to get people talking about the comics, even if people are just rage tweeting about it. But yes, you do often see those mantles changed in a way to get people more excited or introduced, or maybe just to move timelines along in some form or fashion. Heck, we wouldn't have had a Batman Beyond show if somebody didn't say, hey, what would happen if Batman got old and wasn't Batman any longer? So if Bruce Wayne wasn't Batman any longer. So yeah, we got to have those ideas thrown out there, and there is a curiosity for sure. So we see just how that plays out here in this particular universe as we see that Bruce and Selina have a son, and of course they name that son Damian, who as you mentioned, Damian around this time, I guess, probably would have been making his debut in the comics. His story obviously a little bit different in the comics. He's of course the son of Talia and Bruce rather than Selina and Bruce, but they adapted it for this universe, and rather than being trained by the League of Assassins as he was in the comics, Bruce has a pretty strong hand in raising him, as we see here. And we see him having a conversation with him in his bassinet. Damian is in the bassinet still, a young child, and Bruce sits there pondering as to whether or not his own son will be taking up the mantle one day, or if there will be a need for a Batman in the future. But he assures him that he will make sure that he is prepared regardless, and not just have the mantle by birthright.
Little Damian. Am I kidding myself, hoping you'll never have to spend sleepless nights prowling rooftops and hunting criminals? But should the world still need a Dark Knight, I'll see to it that you're more than just a Batman by birthright.
There's a training montage that pays homage. We haven't, I don't think we've touched on it yet, but as is the case with many of these episodes of this particular show, there are visual homages, almost too many to count and go over, but we will cover that certainly in our visual and animation category. But there's plenty of visual homages, Easter eggs, and winks and nods to different eras and notable moments. But through this training montage, we come to an older but still young Damian Wayne, who I believe he's in high school at this point, as he and Bruce and Selina are at the opening of the brand new Batman Museum, which in and of itself is sort of an homage to the Flash Museum. I think we have, I don't know, maybe there was a Silver Age Batman Museum at some point in the comics. Probably was, right? There has to be. I'm sure. Yeah, that seems like a Dick Sprang era Batman that would have happened. But yeah, so there's a Batman Museum that occurs and is opening, and Bruce rather, and Selina are walking around looking at the various different items, and it is a visual smorgasbord in and of itself. We could probably have a full episode of what's in the Batman Museum to talk about, but just as they are exploring it, Batman, or Bruce, I keep calling him Batman. He's no longer Batman at this time, but he does keep alluding. He has a conversation with Damian about taking up the mantle, and Damian very clearly expresses some concern about taking up the mantle, not necessarily feeling like he is built for this role, has other interests. There is a hilarious conversation where he offers several different other avenues that he might want to go down as a profession instead of crime fighter. And Bruce manages to fit them all into, well, Batman does all of those things.
Without Batman, the world would be a much darker place.
Who knows? Someday you may end up in this museum, Damian.
Intimidating much, Dad? Could I finish junior high before you put a cape on me?
If this museum shows me anything, it's that the world will always need a Batman.
But what if I want to be a scientist?
Crime fighting is a science.
What about a race car driver?
The Batmobile is the fastest car on the planet.
Astronaut.
The galaxy is just another neighborhood to patrol for a crime fighter. Isn't that what Green Lantern told you that time?
Cut it out, Dad. Don't map out my life for me, okay?
Damian, why don't you go check out the Hall of Holyisms? It's corny, but it's kind of cool.
He gets that attitude from you.
But he has your heart, Bruce. You know how proud he is of you, of all of this. But he's young. He needs to figure things out for himself, without us pushing him.
Damian leaves to go to the Hall of Holyisms in that moment as Selina has a conversation with Bruce just about, letting young Damian perhaps pursue his own likes. But just as that happens, wouldn't you know it, crashing the party is none other than a very familiar face, that clown prince of crime, or at least someone who resembles him, the Joker.
That's right, and as we quickly see, he's got plenty of his predecessors' special gadgets. He's dropping bombs and Joker gas everywhere, destroying this museum, and he in fact refers to himself as the son of the Joker. And so as Bruce and Selina sort of spring into action, trying to protect everyone, while they're able to kind of keep the Joker at bay until we get the first look at the new Batman, Dick Grayson, having assumed the role here. And he and the new Joker fight for a little bit before ultimately Joker Jr. unleashes quite a few bombs, which begin to destroy the whole museum and in fact bring down huge chunks of the ceiling. And in fact, Bruce and Selina are caught in the debris. Batman pulls Damian to safety, but before he can go back in to try to rescue them, the entire museum goes up in a fiery explosion. And surprising, this is not a Dark Knight Rises scenario. We don't cut to a French cafe after this. They're dead.
I was shocked.
Yeah. It takes a real hard turn. We see a little bit of the funeral being attended by several of Bruce and Selina's friends out of costume, of course. But it's clear here that Damian is he feels destiny calling him, and is he going to answer the call? We cut back to the Batcave where Dick and Damian are kind of having this heart-to-heart. Where Damian is again speaking about how he doesn't know if he can live up to this legacy. He doesn't know if he can be what his father wanted him to be. And Dick tells him that he has all the skills he's learned under the best teacher you could possibly learn under. It's just a matter of whether or not Damian believes that he can do it and is willing to be courageous enough to take up the fight. And at that point, Batman goes speeding off in the Batmobile, and we see Damian sort of looking off to the side as we catch a Robin suit, a different Robin suit than we've seen in this series before.
I've got a lead on where that monster's gonna strike next, Damian.
If I had been the son they wanted me to be, maybe I could have done something. Maybe I could have saved them.
Some things are just destined to happen. For some people, tragedy is inevitable. But tragedy made Bruce Wayne the man he was. It made me who I am.
I don't know if I can live up to the Batman legacy, Dick. I don't know if I want to. If I mess up, people get hurt.
Your dad taught you everything you need to know to protect yourself and others. You just have to believe in yourself enough to use that knowledge. Remember, Damian, there's more to the Batman legacy than being Batman. I should know.
Are you going to stop him?
I'm gonna make sure Joker never hurts anyone again.
Then we cut to a giant statue of Batman that's been erected in Gotham City, which Joker Jr. is once again defacing and is seemingly setting up some kind of giant, as we come to find out, a giant like Joker gas hose that's gonna blanket Gotham City, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And as Batman is going toe to toe with this new Joker, we get a surprise attack from behind, and Batman is knocked out by none other than the original Joker, back from what had been presumed to be the grave. If I didn't mention that during that opening little montage, it's mentioned that Bruce's retirement was brought on after the Joker had seemingly been defeated for the final time when he fell off of a bridge in Gotham City. So turns out he is still alive, but and he and this son of his, this protege of his, have joined up for the ultimate revenge on Batman. He chose now to re-reveal himself because he just found out from his doctor that he only has 6 months to live. And so he plans to go out with a bang by destroying not only Batman, but everything that Batman ever loved, which of course includes all of Gotham City. And right when it seems like the two Jokers have Dick Grayson dead to rights, we get the intro of the new Robin.
So you killed the Waynes in the name of destroying Batman's legacy.
I figured the old man would just keep passing the torch down. And if I'm ever going to get the last laugh, I need to snuff it out. And tonight, it ends with you, the last of the Batmen. My life's work is coming to an end.
Batman is an ideal, not a person. He can't die.
We'll see about that. Goodbye, new Batman. Say hello to the real one when you see him.
Guess you missed the announcement, Joker. There's a new Robin in town, too.
Where are you precious?
Damian.
You were right. It's time I lived up to the legacy. So, what do I do now?
Keep them busy while I get to the gas.
That is right. Yeah, it is the debut of Damian in his suit, and he arrives and is quick to engage both the Joker and Joker Jr. in fisticuffs. There's a small battle that occurs that allows Batman the ability to escape just in time, and they kind of join together and end up fighting both Jokers together. And so this also allows Batman an attempt to stop the gas from spreading out of the statue. As there is a funny line where the Joker sort of mocks the idea that is so cliched in supervillains, and that is leaving heroes alive and also countdown clocks. So he just pulls out a remote, and the machine begins shooting out of the statue's mouth, or the gas begins shooting out of the hose that's in the Batman statue's mouth. So it's sort of a race against time at this point to be able to shut off the gas. And thankfully, as Damian is able to knock out Joker Jr., at that point, Dick is able to throw one of his bat grenades, knocking the head off of the Batman statue and landing just in front of the wheelchair-bound Joker. And wouldn't you know it, like any good cartoon where the villain is foiled, there's a little bit of extra juice left as the hose opens up and sprays a rather large blast of the Joker gas directly into the Joker's face, and seemingly killing him. A lot of death in this episode.
That's right.
For a children's cartoon, but his dentures flop out and roll to the feet of Batman just as Damian walks up, and Damian appears to have embraced his role as Robin at this point, and admits that Dick was right all along, that believing in himself was important. And we get our final montage of the episode where we kind of get a flash forward as we see not only them doing Batman and Robin work together in the Batcave and working together, but then a flash forward of an older Dick Grayson handing Damian the Batman costume, bestowing upon him the role and the the mantle of the bat, and then we get a flash forward to a futuristic Gotham, complete with the mutants from Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. And as we scan up to the top of the building, there's a lightning strike and a reveal of not just Batman, a futuristic Batman, but a young Robin with him as well, as we see that Damian has taken on the role of Batman and his son is taking on the role of Robin. So the adventure continues, and as the mantles roll on, and there we go. And as then we get our final reveal of just what this entire story is, as the bow gets placed on the end of the story and the book closes, the literal book closes. So Alfred, and it is revealed that Alfred has been writing this tale from a desk, and just as he is wrapping up the final sentence, Bruce, modern day Bruce, walks in, talking to him, and Alfred asks him how things were what he was up to, and he mentions that he's off to try and obtain or to contain Catwoman to bring her in, and Alfred mentions at this point that she might be a good wife someday, but Batman wants to hear nothing of it, saying the only rings that he'll put on her are the bat cuffs. And then we get the reveal that the title of Alfred's book that he's been writing is called The Knights of Tomorrow. So, and that's the end of the episode.
That's right. So as we begin to wrap up the plot portion here, we can give our thoughts and our scores here, Cal. This episode is a joy. If you, like us, are a lover of the history of Batman, this is such a joy. This kind of combines a few things. The truncated version is that Batman and Superman and Robin and all those characters were created in the 40s or in 30s and 40s, and then they modernized the comics in the 60s, and they did new Green Lanterns and new Flashes, but it was still Batman and Superman. And so people started asking, well, how are Batman and Superman still fighting crime when they were around during World War II? And so then we created Earth 1 and Earth 2, and the multiverse was born. And so the Golden Age Batman married Catwoman, and they, in that continuity, had a daughter who grew up to be the Huntress, Helena Wayne. And then so they've kind of smushed that origin together with of course Damian Wayne, the fifth Robin, because everyone forgets that Stephanie Brown was Robin for about 3 months. But the fifth Robin, Damian Wayne, who is a bit more militant, and of course was the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul in the comic books, and just a real little stinker in the comics.
Totally different way of acting, and didn't really endear himself to too many people.
Yeah, and there's and we'll cover that perhaps somewhere down the road if we cover something with a more comic accurate portrayal of Damian in it. But yeah, so they kind of combined those ideas of the older Batman getting married and having a kid with at the time what was the modern and newest Robin in the comics. So this is officially for historical notes, this is Damian Wayne's first animated appearance. So there's a fun little fact for you. But like I said, I think this is it's a lovely little letter. Like I said, we'll talk about all the visual homages that we get to the Dick Sprang era, to the Bill Finger era, all the way to we'll talk about like Dick's Batman suit is very much reminiscent of like a late 80s, early 90s Batman look to him. So this is another great episode, which we've talked about a lot, how this show would sort of lovingly pay homage to multiple eras of Batman.
It also, I would say it's probably fair to I should ask you, would it be fair to say that this also somewhat pays homage to the Grant Morrison Batman and Robin comic, where Dick was Batman in that comic and Damian was Robin in that late 2000, I guess it was 2009 era, maybe.
Yeah, that was a period as you pointed out there where Bruce Wayne had died, quote unquote, in the main DC Comics continuity. So that was when Damian Wayne officially became Robin, and Dick Grayson took up the mantle of Batman. So yeah, there's a nice little homage there as we see Dick and Damian sort of grow into their new roles together in this episode as well. So yeah, like I said, kind of the story itself is a love letter, and also just as funny as it is, the fact that it was an imaginary tale, as we find out at the end, or a possible future, one might say, that Alfred is sort of imagining, also very reminiscent of like a Silver Age story, where if you ever see like old Silver Age covers, it's tons of stuff like that, or it's like Superman turned into a horse and he married a horse. Like
Right.
there's just like a million comics like this, and then it would say somewhere inside it would be like an imaginary tale featuring featuring Batman and imagining what would happen, very much in the vein of eventually what would be the what if in Marvel, or the Elseworlds in DC. So even the fact that they use that framing device of it being sort of Alfred's wishful thinking of what he would like to see Bruce's future be like, I think it's even that it in and of itself is kind of a little homage to that particular era of comics. So overall, I just had a ball with this one, and like I said, the sort of I think it's also aged well, as we said, with sort of speaking about how the mantle of the superhero, the symbol of the superhero, will kind of outlast any individual person who takes up that role. So for all those reasons, I ended up settling on an 8 out of 10 for my plot score.
Yeah, I ended up giving it the exact same score. It is a lot of fun. It is certainly, there's I think it's a mix of tones, and we've talked about it before. The way that this show is set up, it walks that fine line of being the overly campy, goofy Batman 66 style of humor, while also still retaining some of the seriousness of modern Batman. So it's not making fun of it. It's not Batman and Robin levels of campiness.
Right.
It's certainly, as we so often say, it's a love letter to it. It's not making fun of Batman 66. It's not even making fun of the campiness. It's sort of winking at it, while also still retaining the DNA of the more modern, serious Batman. So this one definitely, I would say, lands on more of the serious side. There are humorous moments for sure, a few of which we touched on. Some of them are in the visuals. The idea of the Joker having a quote unquote son, a fake son, the sort of self-referential lines of the Joker talking about the different demises that he's faced, that are direct homages or direct references to ways that he's either died in comic books, movies, or the other, in the DCAU even. So there are some meta lines, there are some humorous aspects to it, but this one definitely tells a much more, I would say, a more serious story. And so it walks that fine line between that. I was gobsmacked, first time ever seeing this particular episode of this show, and gobsmacked that they ended up killing Bruce Wayne and Selina. Yes, it turns out to be a story, but the fact that they did that they killed them in the story as a means of saying, well, tragedy is what is sort of the catalyst that begets this heroic tale of the Batman. It's what, the conversation between Dick and Damian in the cave. Dick reminds him, Bruce faced tragedy, I faced tragedy, and now you face tragedy, and this is what can drive you to motivate, to take up this mantle, and to believe in yourself, to fight crime, and to take the stance of vengeance. So I really enjoyed it. It's fun. As I said, I think the visuals and the various different Easter eggs and things will keep you very much entertained throughout. But I think even the plot as a whole, seeing where things go, the twists and the turns, And making Damian Wayne a likable character feels like no easy feat based on how he was introduced and how much, or especially around this time. This was 2010, and he had just only recently been introduced to the comics within a couple of years before this, I believe. So
right.
And was, again, as we mentioned at the top, not well liked by a lot of people, and you weren't supposed to like him, but wasn't liked. So to make him an endearing figure is a feat in and of itself. So yeah, a really, really great job here by everybody involved. It's a fun story. I think you mentioned at the top, Todd Casey and Jake Black responsible for the writing, and yeah, they did a fun job of kind of marrying all of these different elements together, putting together a fun story, and then putting a little bow on the end, keeping the tone sort of normal to what the show is you expect out of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and again, we might tackle this in a future episode if an animated Damian Wayne ever comes back. But there's certainly been comic runs since that. I think once Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason got a hold of them for their Batman and Robin run and their Super Sons run eventually, I think that they kind of ironed out the kinks in how to work with a character like that. But yeah, to this point in Damian's history, this only being a few years after he was introduced and kind of designed to be the antithesis of any Robin that had come before him. It was definitely an interesting task to take that character and, like I said, kind of mold him into a couple different and marrying sort of brand new continuity with a 50-year-old continuity in and of itself is, I'm sure, was kind of a unique challenge. So like I said, a lot of things they had to juggle to pull this together and make it coherent, and like you said, the fact that they were able to kind of take those dramatic turns. And I think that's one of the things, and I know James Tucker has always talked about this, kind of his philosophy of Batman is that he is all of these things. He is the catchphrase spouting, hammers of justice, bright knight, and at the same time he can be that crusader for vengeance, and the little boy crying out for mom and dad. Like it's all of that wrapped together, which is what makes Batman such a rich and fun character to explore over the past 80 some years. So and this episode's another great example of how Mr. Tucker and the rest of the folks who worked on the show love to explore every facet of Batman. So a great job by everyone involved there, Cal. And from there, we will move on to our visuals and animation section. Once again, the animation services provided by Digital Emation. And this episode was directed by Michael Chang. Boy, where do we even start? Because I mean, we could talk for a half hour just on the homages to either again Dick Sprang era comics, Norm Brayfogle Batman. We got the Adam West show. We've got the Batman the Animated Series. Like there's not to mention got
some Nightfall in there. You got pretty much every era.
Yeah, pretty much every era here covered. All the way up to like. Damian's bat suit at the end is very reminiscent of like the DC 1 million Batman suit as well. So yeah, another Grant Morrison, a lot of Grant Morrison stuff in this episode. So but yes, just as you might expect with an episode which, as we talked about, kind of celebrates Batman from his initial 30s and 40s origins all the way up to a present day. There's just a lot. So what with that leading question, what stood out to you this week as far as visuals and animation?
All right, let's do one thing. I'm going to try and do this in a single breath. We're going to go through every single cameo. I'm not going to be able to do it in every single breath, but we'll try. All right, so why
don't we split it up to like heroes and villains?
All right, so I'll do villains, and then I'll pass the baton over to you. All right.
All right.
So we had Joker Jr., Charlie Caligula, Captain Stingery, Flamingo, Hugo Strange, King Kraken, Mr. Freeze, Mr. Toad, Don and Rob, Perot, Lumiere, Poison Ivy, Professor Pig, Riddler, Scorpiana, Solomon Grundy, El Sombrero, and Swagman.
Woo!
Yeah.
I'm impressed. Everyone, give Cal a round of applause for that,
Thank you.
and bear with me here as I list all of the characters that we see on the heroic side. We have Batman, Bruce Wayne, Catwoman, Damian Wayne slash Robin, Robin slash Nightwing slash Batman, Dick Grayson, Alfred Pennyworth. Then in our cameos, we see Barbara Gordon, Clark Kent, Dinah Queen, Diana Prince, Jaime Reyes, Jim Gordon, Lois Lane, Oliver Queen, Steve Trevor. Probably some more in that wedding scene that aren't as singled out, but those were the ones that the Batman Brave and the Bold wiki had. So yeah, so there's a smorgasbord of blink and you'll miss them cameos, plus as we talked, there's the Batman Museum, which has things, classic Batcave trophies like the T-Rex and the giant penny, and we see like posters and mannequins of Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze and plenty of the other villains, as you mentioned. So gosh, there's so much to look at. I mean, everyone from the background designers to the character designers, as we said, we have all these new suits: Dick's Batman suit, Damian's Batman suit, Damian's Robin suit, the young future son of Damian as in his Robin suit, and then the new Joker. An old decrepit dying Joker. Like there's
yeah, and that's just for our main story. That's not even touching on the DCAU homages that we see in the opening teaser, where we have a Question who's very much on model for what we saw in the Justice League Unlimited. He lost his gloves and now he's got stripes on his tie. Otherwise, he's pretty much a 1-for-1 model for what we saw in the DCAU. We have the parademons that are absolutely the same model as Superman the Animated Series, and then of course Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah. I have to assume, given that Mr. Tucker worked as a character designer on Superman the Animated Series, that being his first job on the show before he eventually went into storyboards and directing, I have to assume that's his design, and that's why the parademons are in there.
That would be a fair assumption. Maybe we can get confirmation from him.
I might slide into some DMs this week, see if we can talk to our sources and figure something out. But
there we go. But yeah, it was, of course, that made that feel right at home. It looked very much in the same vein as what we were used to for our apocalyptian wasteland that is Apocalypse. And Calabac didn't have the exact same. He had sort of a mixture between the classic Jack Kirby look and maybe a little bit of DCAU coloration and such used. But overall, you could see that the DNA was in there in our opening bit there. But yeah, some of the things I had written down, I would say we get sort of an initial introduction where we see, as Alfred is narrating the history of Batman, we see the original Batman design, the Bob Kane Billfinger design of Batman with the purple gloves swinging down. I thought we were going to get the BTAS homage right then and there, as we see guys coming out of a bank and kind of the doors open. I expected the doors to blow off, but they just open and close, and then they look up and see the Batman above them swinging down. And I love that transitions to the introduction of Robin. We get the first cover, the introduction. We get an homage to the cover of the introduction of Robin, of course, as he's bursting through the trampoline, or the circus trampoline, or whatever it is that he so famously did on that very first issue. We then from there get a transition that homages directly to the original opening sequence of the Batman 66, complete with villains getting punched in the face and a turn and a warm handshake between Batman and Robin right then and there. So that made me smile. Like, it was absolutely perfect. No notes with that one. Just an absolute joy to watch. It made me smile. I loved it. But as we mentioned, from there we get to see this Batman museum. I think I lost count of the different things. Of course, you get the more obvious ones. You have the dinosaur and the giant penny, of course, the Shakespeare bust from Batman 66, which also plays a role in this show as well, but also plays or pops up middle of the fight. I thought I saw the Nightfall costume in this setting. Also, you at least see sort of the leg with the pouch belt design on it that the Nightfall costume had. You see 3 different Batmobiles. I believe the original 1940s Batmobile with the giant bat head on the front. You see the Batman 66 Batmobile, and then you see the modern day Brave and the Bold Batmobile, I guess was the third one. So you get that. You see various different villain designs and little background Easter eggs from various different villains. Mr. Freeze, as you mentioned, Poison Ivy makes an appearance in the background. The Hall of Holyisms, of course, another tribute to Batman 66. Sending Robin to the Hall of Holyisms to learn some holyisms was great. But yeah, I think I'll let I took up 3/4 of the episodes, probably Easter eggs there with that description, but all of those I enjoyed. I think the fights, as is the case with most of the fights we see in this episode, they do them kind of one of 2 ways, where they sort of have the freeze motion where punches are being thrown and they sort of they turn into almost like comic book panels where the characters are static. And you just they slightly move across the screen, like the panel moves from left to right across the screen, or up to down, or north to south, I guess. Or they have it where the camera is sort of moving with the action, so the punch it lands, and there's like this little reverberation that happens with the camera, and then you cut to the other side, and another fist hits, and the camera shakes a little bit. But I always enjoyed that. I think that the fights that are had in this particular episode, especially between Batman and Joker Jr. in the museum, and then the fights at the end between Damian, Joker Jr., Batman, all of that occurring at the end. They were for a children's cartoon. Yes, this is, on Cartoon Network, and, things were different than Batman the Animated Series, but I thought very violent.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of I would just say that Junior Joker has such like a weird, like, Reddit edgelord vibe. His design, I don't know what it is, but I feel like maybe it's homaged a little bit more on like a Heath Ledger Joker. Like, he's just got this real, I don't know, like, I think it's like the weird hair, and it's just like, it's in the eyes. I don't know what it is, and we'll talk about his the voice performance in a little bit here, but yeah, he feels real creepy and just creepy and weird, and that design, I think, really nails it. And he just feels real off kilter in a way that the other Joker, who is in his little Professor X wheelchair, but it's a clown car.
Right.
There's just some real visceral weird stuff in this in these Joker designs we get in this episode, I feel like.
Yeah, when at the end, when he gets murdered by his own gas and his teeth pop out and jump across the ground to land at Batman's feet, and then they do the chatter thing, like a gag set of teeth would. I thought that was pretty funny. We mentioned already in the flash forward scene, also post Joker death, after Damian picks up the mantle, we get the classic homage, and definitely not the first one in this series, right? Homage to Batman the Animated Series, as we get the building pan up to see not only Batman, but his Robin, the new Robin, standing on the roof with a lightning strike.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the way the mutants are kind of posed is right out of the intro to Batman the Animated Series, and then yes, the lightning strike with Batman on the rooftop. And then we introduced to the next Robin as well. Just really love the framing of this scene, and like we said, it's such a visual smorgasbord of homages to various eras of Batman. And I think this is really fantastic. If I haven't said it enough, I really love Dick's Batman suit too.
Really cool.
That it's a little bit of that, like I said, it's the Neil Adams kind of Silver Age suit, but it's got that sort of darker, shinier blue color that you maybe saw towards the end of the like the late 80s, early 90s look to it, more like when when folks like Norm Brayfogle or Jim Aparo were the artists on the books. So that's right in our right in our kind of wheelhouse for when we started reading comics back in the day. So that's kind of always a fun little take on the archetypal blue and gray suit of Batman there. And then we do get, I think this is our first time we've gotten to look at the disco Nightwing suit in this show. Not just a brief appearance, but just perfect for this show. Like you could not do the modern Nightwing. I mean, you could do the modern Nightwing suit in this show. It would look fine, but the disco suit is like perfect for this show. So
if the shoe fits,
absolutely. So overall, I love this episode. I love the way it looks, and if I didn't mention it, Damian's Robin suit, they did something interesting. It's very much the the Tim Drake red and black suit. From the comics, but they did something interesting, I thought, which is on the cape and the gloves, the black on the suit, instead of just giving it like the grayish highlight color, they gave it like a very muted green color on his gloves and his cape, which I thought that worked. If they had tried to go with like a bright green, I don't think it would have worked. But that working with like the sort of darker, more maroon kind of red color on the suit, I think kind of made that stand out and not just make it a kind of carbon copy of the suit from the comics or the new Batman Adventures suits. So I appreciated that on Damian's Robin suit as well. So for all those reasons, I think for all the praise we've heaped on this, I didn't really have a choice but to give this a perfect 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, not very surprising at all there with that one. I couldn't give it anything but a 10 out of 10 myself. Last couple of things I'll mention here before we move on to our next category. There is also a homage. I would be remiss not to mention there's a pretty clear homage to the cover of Batman Year One, the Frank Miller version. Where Bruce is on that cover. Bruce is sitting on his knees with a dead Martha and Thomas Wayne laying at his feet, and there's a shot. You don't get the dead parents part of it, but Damian falls into that exact stance at that very exact angle. There's homages to the first issue of Batman or Detective Comics, where it's actually kind of used in the training. I feel like I actually don't know. Maybe you're more familiar with it. I know that they do that whole candlelight like vigil thing that or the candlelight ceremony that Batman does in the comics with Dick. But then there's the scene where he's like doing the chemicals thing, where he's got the goggles on, he's mixing the chemicals. Is that also in the Robin comic, or was that the direct homage?
I think that's more of a direct homage to the comics, right? I think it's maybe it's in the third or fourth, maybe second or third appearance of Batman.
Okay.
They do that little 2-page origin that I think is drawn by Bob Kane, where it's him lifting the weights and playing with chemistry, and then and the bat comes flying through the window in the last panel. They definitely, I think we're homaging that with Bruce and Damian training there as well. So a couple of good shouts there.
Absolutely. And last one I'll mention, it couldn't tell, it could probably be an homage to one or both, but Thomas Wayne, of course, usually is made to look like sort of an older Bruce, just with a mustache. So, of course, when Bruce gets older, he sports the mustache. But it also happens to look a lot like his Matches Malone disguise. So we get further Batman lore homages, whether intentional or not, nods here as we go. We told you the cuts were deep, the Easter eggs many, and there's probably ones that we have missed. So feel free, if there's ones that you caught that we didn't mention, feel free to tweet us at DCAU Review, or slide into the DMs on Instagram, or comment on any of our posts and let us know any of them that we missed, because we probably did, with the sheer amount of Batman Easter eggs and homages that we tried to catch here. Hey, this would probably be a good video, a good YouTube diary for someone to cover here. The many Batman Easter eggs and homages of this episode.
Absolutely, yes. I'd love to have anybody reach out to us at DCAU Review on Twitter or Instagram if there's any homages we missed or any Easter eggs that we forgot to mention here. So definitely let us know about that. But from there, Cal, we will move on to the category of music, and this is of course represented by our dynamic music partners. Who we're very familiar with. And yeah, the Brave and the Bold music, as we've talked about many times, tends to hang in the background quite a bit, but they did do something I think different, perhaps calling on their own history of scoring futuristic Batman stories. But we get a lot of electric guitar mixed in, especially when when Dick as Batman first bursts onto the scene, and then again when Damian kind of makes his grand entrance as Robin in the third act. There's a little bit more electric guitar mixed in with our strings and our synthesizers this week.
Yeah, it felt like, especially when Dick makes his appearance at the Batman Museum, we get it sounded like the Brave and the Bold theme, just sort of played in a different key, but also, as you mentioned, on electric guitar. So future Batman means we take themes, we sort of modernize them, we add a heavier, more rock centered soundtrack to the appearances. So yeah, I picked up on that as well. There's some good music that plays. I did have the jazzy theme at the beginning for the question in our opening bit there. There was a heavy jazz saxophone theme that played as he's sort of bouncing around. It felt good because that's like a crime noir type style piece that fit that character well as he's running around beating these giant aliens up on this apocalyptic wasteland. But yeah, I think the use and sort of homaging themselves, the dynamic music partners chose to include these heavier guitars and things that were a little bit less jazzy, because that tended to be the overall theme of the Brave and the Bold was hi-hats and the horns and even some of the trumpets and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the guitar, while there wasn't, I don't think a specific tune that played that I was like, oh, this is hummable or memorable, you do pick up obviously that the soundtrack is different, and the fact that they're kind of paying themselves tribute was an added bonus. So I ended up giving music a 7 out of 10 based on those things there, that just on that a change for the better, for good, and that didn't hurt the soundtrack, and the fact that it's sort of an homage or seeming homage based on the fact that they are playing off of themselves. Took it up to a 7 for me.
And funny you would say that, as I also had a 7 out of 10 for my music score here. For basically all the reasons you mentioned. You said the Brave and the Bold music. Yeah, I do always appreciate the percussion used. There's a lot of congas, a lot of hi-hat, as you mentioned there, to the music, and so bringing in that jazzier flair to the music, but also tying in those like you said, sort of harkening back to some of the dynamic music partners' earlier work with the electric instruments was certainly a fun treat and a way to set this episode apart. So a solid 7 from both of us there. And from there, Cal, we will move to our final category, which of course is voice acting. We have a pretty sizable cast to talk about here today. So I'll kind of run through them, and then as usual, we'll kind of highlight the big ones. Let's see, here in the cast here we have briefly Nicholas Guest as the Question. We have Michael Leon Woolley, as Calabac, and we have Nika Futerman as Selena Kyle / Catwoman, and then we'll get to our kind of main. And then the very end, as a fun little trivia note, playing the young Robin at the end of the episode is one Sebastian Bader, Diedrich's real life son, to my understanding.
Such a fun little cameo there. I thought that, yeah.
And I was gonna say, and based on it, it sounds like he was real young at the time too. Like this is like, and not this is not an insult. It's adorable.
Yeah.
It sounds like when the kids they got to do like the Charlie Brown Christmas. Like it's got that real innocent, like really like just okay, buddy. Just gotta say these 2 lines here, all right? Like it's adorable. But it's that's a really fun treat there, especially because as we'll get to, Mr. Bader also provides the voice of the adult Damian Batman there at the end there as a fun little bit of symmetry. But yes, we have our main cast here. We have, as mentioned, narrating the episode, we have James Garrett as Alfred, who would actually come back to voice Alfred in a few of Mr. Tucker's future animated projects in the Batman, Bad Blood, and Hush animated movies. So we know at the very least Mr. Tucker was a fan of his work as Alfred. But yeah, I like him. He almost kind of evokes to me the and I don't, the gentleman's name escapes me, but the Alfred of the Keaton / Kilmer / Clooney Batman movies. Like he's got a really like old sort of rasp to his voice, but there's something in there that kind of that reminded me of that version of Alfred. It's not really reminiscent of either the 60s Alfred or certainly not like Ephraim Zimbalist or really any of the other Alfreds. There's a little bit of uniqueness in like kind of the rasp and the voice is a little shakier, I feel like, because he's playing an Alfred that's a little bit older here. But I like him as Alfred.
Yeah, he's solid. I think he has a lot to carry as the narrator for a large portion of the episode. And I just kept thinking, I was like, man, is this Alfred narrating this? Who is this narrating this? And then of course the reveal at the end is it's Alfred. It's like, man, he's got a good narration voice. I wasn't sure if the reveal was going to be this was old Bruce telling the story or this was old Damian telling the story. It was kind of what I thought at the very end. But no, the fact that it's revealed that it's Alfred. Yeah, it's definitely different than Ephraim Zimbalist. It's certainly different than the Alfred that we, the 66, as you mentioned. But I think it fits for what is asked of him for this, specifically this episode. It's a good narrator's voice. It fits well. It's warm. It makes, looking back at it and seeing now as someone reading a story, it's not something that would be alien to a Disney story that is also reading from a book or, something in the same vein. So it captures the essence for what they were going for, of someone warm and inviting, telling the story of whatever he's about to tell. So yeah, I thought he did a solid job.
Absolutely. And then voicing Dick Grayson / Batman in this episode, we have Lex Lang, who we've talked about before. We've reviewed one other episode of The Brave and the Bold with him as Robin in it. I think he does a solid job. He doesn't get a ton to do as far as this episode. I think the best he gets to do in the scene is probably the scene in the Batcave after Bruce and Selina have died, where he kind of gives him the speech about, there's a lot. I think the phrasing is there's a lot more to Batman than being Batman, which I think is kind of a fun turn of phrase there. And I think he does a solid job as sort of the older brother, trying to kind of encourage and comfort. Speaking of which, Patrick Cavanaugh, who folks would probably know best from, he had a role on Mad Men as well as on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., playing Damian. Other than Mr. Garrett as Alfred, probably the one with the most heavy lifting to do. A guest voice actor coming in to voice Robin here. I think he does a solid job. He's got this kind of youthful an unsureness to his voice, shakiness to his voice, that I think you hear all the way throughout, even once he, and in the last act when he puts on the suit and he's kind of he's kind of into things, he's still kind of checking with Dick of what do I do now? Like I think he's got like this kind of shaky this sort of shakiness to his voice that I think works for the story they're telling about this kid who's afraid he can't possibly live up to his parents' legacy.
Yeah, I think that he did exactly what was asked of him. And as we talked about, he was blazing new paths for this particular character and how this character acted, spoke, delivered lines, sort of. So because it was written differently than what people were used to, he's kind of out on his own here. And to me, I think it probably would have been a safer, easier thing to kind of be a brat, or to be sort of the stick in the mud that Damian was characterized, or how he was characterized at that time. It would have been much easier to sort of pull that off, the overconfident douche, for lack of a better term, that he was portrayed as. Than playing this sort of unsure. He's not cocky. He's not arrogant. He's not any of the things that the character was portrayed as in the comics. So to have to come in and play as this unsure, showing a lack of confidence, and be able to communicate that, but then transition once this tragedy strikes his life to being a more confident and believing in himself. Yeah, I thought he did a good job too. There's not a lot. Maybe would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of the. I think because of the pacing of the episode, you couldn't. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of him kind of buying into the fact that he could take up this mantle before just kind of grasping it. That's not the actor's fault, obviously. It's that was how the story was written for him. But I do think that his best scene is that scene between him and Dick in the Batcave, as they're kind of going back and forth and talking about what the mantle means. Dick has this conversation with him, believing in himself, and you kind of, that's the turning point for the character, obviously. And then the next time you see him, he's certainly characterized with more self-confidence. So I think he did a good job as well for what was asked of him.
Agreed. And then we'll mention here the voice of both Jokers, and I think really stealing the show this week is of course the great Jeff Bennett, who man of 1,000 voices that from voices in from Johnny Bravo himself to plenty of voices on various cartoons over the years, and more modernly might be known for things like Enchanted and things like that, but just SpongeBob, a million things. He's done it all, but plays two very uniques. And as I mentioned, his Joker is perfect for this show. We've talked about him once or twice before, I believe, in his version of the Joker. But he plays an older, in poor health version of that Joker, and then, as mentioned, he plays like this weird, like school shooter Joker, as the Joker Jr. character, like this real this weird, creepy vibe Joker Jr., which again paired with that wonderful design they gave him. Man, he's got a lot to do, and I genuinely had to look up to see if look it up on online to see if this was two different voice actors, because Mr. Bennett also has a pretty recognizable voice. If you've heard him do a few voices, you can usually pick him out. He's one of because he's one of the more famous and prolific voice actors working. But even there, I was like, I can't tell if that's him. It's not really until I feel like Joker Jr. laughs, that's where you can pick it out. But it took me a few minutes to be like, is that the same guy? Did they get somebody else to voice the son Joker? What's going on? So I thought he did a really fantastic job playing not only two different versions of Joker, but even, like I said, the version of Joker he's played is now older and has a little bit more of a rasp to his voice and is on his last leg, so he's a little bit more deranged and psychotic in his own right. So he's got a lot of heavy lifting to do, and he's perhaps unsurprisingly, he's great.
Yeah, it's not surprising that his voice acting career goes back, I think, to either the late 80s or early 90s. So he's been doing this for such a long time at such a high level, and routinely gets jobs in. I mean, his IMDb page is longer than would probably stretch the length of most people's houses. It's a huge resume of just being hired again and again and again and again, and the reason is because of his immense talent. So we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago with Dietrich Bader in Zeta, playing multiple roles, and that you're playing two different versions of a similar character but not the same. And then it's the same thing here with Mr. Bennett, where it's the same character but it's different. You have to differentiate, and one of them is an older grizzled character, and one of them is a younger knockoff version, a discount version of that character, if you will. I'm 100% with you. I didn't pick up on it during the actual show to the very end. I was like, holy cow, I think that's the same guy. And then, certain enough, you roll credits, and it's credited to Mr. Bennett of doing both of them. So yeah, and that in and of itself is a testament to his talent, to be able to differentiate enough where you question, you're like, did they just get a guy that kind of sounded like him in the same vein? Nope, it's the same guy. So I think that's effective in this role because you wanted it to be different enough, but it's a similar character that he talks about as the Joker, the first Joker. He talks about training this guy in his image, and this nobody taking him from nothing to make him Joker Jr. Not the result of someone having kids with him, as Selena Kyle was so appalled to hear or to think about. So in another funny line, but yeah, he is. There's probably, we could talk about it for quite some time, just how talented he is. I think his record speaks for itself as to why he continues to get jobs even to today. He's a talented actor and is able to pull off multiple roles. It's an extra point for me.
Absolutely, for sure. Just fantastic job by Mr. Bennett. No, he is kind of, as we said, on the back burner in this episode, of course, as mentioned, the great Diedrich Bader as Batman and as the adult Damian Wayne in this episode. Gets a lot to do. And as we said, I think maybe the highlight for him is those interactions he gets to have with Miss Futterman as Selena in this episode. We get to see them, kind of in their old age being, or their middle age being, very sweet and loving to each other. And then him kind of, slowly but surely kind of pushing Damian towards the mantle of Batman, whether he's ready or not, is, he gets some funny moments in there, as well as, the more heroic moments we expect from his Batman towards the end. And even that, as we said, that final little interaction he has with Mr. Garrett as Alfred at the end of the episode, when it's revealed that this was all kind of an imaginary tale, so to speak, and Alfred's kind of giving him the business about how he's straightened up his cape and cowl a little bit more than usual, because he knows he's going to be fighting Catwoman, and wouldn't it be nice if she were a miss, could become Mrs. Wayne one day, and him just sternly replying, the only thing I'm looking to slap on her is a pair of handcuffs. I love Diedrich Bader as Batman. It's not a great revelation to say that, but I love him in this episode as well. So I think really off the strength of Mr. Bennett's performance as the two Jokers, and then the regular greatness of Mr. Bader as Batman, I ended up with a pretty strong 8 out of 10 for my voice acting score for this week.
We were so close. I so close to exactly the same score each category. I went just 1 point higher. I went a 9 out of 10 for my voice acting. I thought it was pretty outstanding all across the board this week. I think maybe the only thing that I could complain about was having because Bruce dies in the middle of the episode, you get a little bit less of Mr. Bader than you normally do, but that's nitpicking. That's not to say, again, we just spent quite some time complimenting the rest of the cast here, so that's not to take anything away from them, but more Mr. Bader is always a good thing in my opinion. So ended up giving it a 9 out of 10 just for that reason.
Absolutely. So tallying everything up, Cal, as we get to our final scores here, I believe tallying everything up, I will have a final score of 33 out of 40.
Absolutely. And yep, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we were identical in every category except the last one, which I gave 1 point higher. So ending my score with a 34 out of 40.
Very good, Cal. Not quite in our top pick scenario, but as I think we've talked about, we don't talk about rewatchability traditionally or at least in the same way with our Elseworlds episodes, because we're not watching every single episode of these series. But if you were looking for a Brave and the Bold episode to check out, I wouldn't necessarily say this is like super reminiscent or a great representation of the series, because we don't really get any other wacky, we don't get wacky team ups really. Like there's a little bit with the question at the start of the episode, but I still think this is, like I said, this is a really fun episode if you're just a fan of Batman in general. I think, like I said, this covers so much ground and packs in so many homages and love letters to all these different eras of Batman, from, like we said, from Bob Kane to Grant Morrison and plenty in between there. So and different genres too, from the cartoons to the Adam West show. So I think in that way, it's absolutely worth watching, even if you're not going to sit down and watch every single episode of this show, which honestly you probably should because it's great. But even if you're not, I think as if you consider yourself a big Batman fan, then this one should be on your lists of Batman cartoons to watch before things are all said and done.
Yeah, I concur. I would say this definitely gets a thumbs up for me as well. It's hard. I think when all is said and done, when we've run out of DCAU content, new DCAU content to cover, I think that it's fair to say that we'll try and go through some of the episodes of this that we've not covered, because it is so close to perfect each and every time we get to visit this Elseworld. It's a joy. I don't think there's been one time we haven't been over the moon about just the overall composition of the episode. We always have great things to talk about when it comes to the animation. The plots are always strong. There's so many homages and just enough nostalgia for any true Batman fan to enjoy, even if you don't watch this regularly or if you don't care for the campiness compared to the DCAU style. There's enough to enjoy out of it where you can just pop in, enjoy it, and pop back out. So, and we talked about it at the top. There are some threads that run through this series, as you've let me know. So there's some things that we've talked about that kind of are overarching stories that you can kind of follow through to create one larger story. So yeah, I think it's safe to say there's a reason why we mentioned at the top that this is our favorite Elseworld to visit, and that is because each and every time we visit here, it's a joy.
Absolutely, Cal. Can't wait to get back to this Elseworld somewhere down the line. But as we begin to wrap things up here, thank you everybody for listening, whether you do so on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or of course on the Pod Tower YouTube channel. Wherever you listen to us, a good way to support us, a good free way to support us would be if you're on a podcast app, give us 5 stars, leave us a review. That helps bump us up in the old search algorithm, get some new ears on the pod. If you're watching/listening on YouTube, please like and favorite those videos and subscribe to the Pod Tower, where once again you're not only getting stuff from us, but you're also getting content from the Watchtower database, as well as all of Tim Talk's back catalog as well. So lots of great stuff for you to check out on there, which we would appreciate. If you'd like to support us more directly in a monetary sense, you can check the show notes on whichever service you're looking at here. On the show notes, you will find a couple of options. One, we have a little donate button on our main feed, which you can find a link to, or you can also find the link to our store and pick yourself up a hat or a mug or what have you. Cal, we are wrapping up. We are leaving the Elseworlds. We are returning back to the DCAU proper next week. And it's been a little while, but I believe it's time that we head back to the old sunny skies of Metropolis.
That is right, Liam. We just as we wrapped up our last Elseworld last month, we just celebrated a huge milestone for the Man of Steel, and as we've talked about several times here on the program, there are fewer Superman episodes than almost any other show that we've covered. So we don't have a lot left because we blew through a lot of these episodes very early on. So this month we will be returning to the sunny skies of Metropolis. We'll be tackling some new ground as we review a few episodes that we have not covered as of yet. We will have the opportunity for a re-review that may or may not tie into a certain property that is dropping a film this very month, and then who knows what else we've got in store for us. But it's going to be a fun month as we head back and talk about some Superman the Animated Series episodes all month. It's going to be a blast.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Definitely let us know what you thought of this week's episode and every episode we do. As mentioned, you can always follow us at DCAU Review on Instagram and Twitter. We look forward to hearing what you thought of this episode and what you think we should review in the future, and what you're excited about in the worlds of DC animation and just DC in general. As Cal said, some big stuff on the horizon for the live action movies as well. So sure we'll have plenty to talk about in the coming weeks and months. But until then, I'm Liam.
And I'm Cal.
And we'll be back soon with another episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.